Welcome everyone to Before You Fly, Check the Map monthly webinar. This month we will be talking about Aloft Geo Portal, and I'm joined by guest host Brad Llewellyn, who is Aloft's head of product and partner integration here. My name is Erica Cooley, and I'm Aloft's of community. I'm responsible for connecting with the drone community to share educational opportunities and information so that we can leverage UAS technology to fly safely and compliantly in the national airspace system. I'm a Part 107 pilot since 2017, and I'm also a member of the Women in Drones, Women Who Drone, and the FAA safety team. So I'm very excited to have this conversation today with Brad. So I'll let him give a little introduction of himself.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah, Brad Llewellyn. I'm the head of product here. I've been flying for a few years myself, not quite as long as you, but I've definitely spent a lot of time in the geospatial world. I've been dealing with geospatial data and applications since, before I'd like to recall, 30 years, I guess it's been now, late 80s, early 90s. So not to date myself, but it's been a long stint. I love dealing with things that involve maps and applications, products around that. So pretty excited to show you what we've got going here. Let me quickly just kind of look, kind of give you a quick overview of where we are, or why we even developed the Geo Portal. It's interesting, we kind of saw two things come to light. One was through data submissions via B4UFLY, the app that we develop and manage for the FAA. We saw a lot of data submissions from local and state governments saying, hey, we'd really like to get this out there on your platform. At the same time, we're hearing from drone operators saying, hey, I'd really like to know whether I can fly in this park or around this facility or something like that. Really, the Aloft network has the most people flying, whether it be recreational, commercial, government, first responders. Between our air control platform and B4UFLY, we're seeing over 1 million airspace safety checks per month. So great visibility for this data. We thought this was a prime opportunity to, get data from those authoritative sources that have the regulations, the information about those advisories, and put it in front of that large audience and kind of to fill that gap. So, it's a common problem, right? If you're on this webinar, you probably understand it, that, parks is a great example. Signs go but so far, they're not always easily apparent. We saw from the inquiries we were getting from drone pilots, can I fly here or not? The information just wasn't quite out there as readily. And, this gives us the opportunity to do that. Putting it in the hands of folks that want to use it. We announced this, I guess, back at AUVSI maybe a month ago, and already we've got some really key stakeholders in this, whether it be NASA, NOAA, BLM. There's dozens of agencies already signed up to post their data. LAFD, California Fish and Wildlife, just to name a few. So very excited with the traction we're getting. Good stuff coming in, and should be filling up that local airspace later fairly quickly here. Did you want to speak to this one, Erica?
Yeah, and I think it's really great to make that differentiation of who is contributing and then who is benefiting from the information. So anybody who's operating or using the national airspace system can benefit from the B4UFLY app or Aloft, to use for UAS operations. But a question that we've been receiving is, do individual recreational or commercial pilots need to use the Aloft Geo Portal? And it's a really great question. As Brad mentioned, the intended user who's actually submitting data on Geo Portal would be those authoritative agencies, people who manage parks, local ordinance for takeoff and landing rules, having ground rules for UAS. Those are the people who will be using the platform. But the great thing about this source is that it will help make the map B4UFLY, as well as Aloft and Aloft Air Control, more accurate for the individual user who's using it for drone airspace awareness. And so you don't have to do anything as an individual operator other than just keep using the apps as you have been. The data will be ingested and will become live in real time on the applications. So you can just look forward to having more accurate as well as a robust amount of airspace advisories, as Brad said, coming from whether it's parks and wildlife organizations or fire departments, things like that, that would help you be more aware of areas that you can or cannot fly a UAS in.
I guess with that, let's jump in. I wanted to show a quick demo of the platform in action. I've now logged in. This is I've logged into my account. I'm set up, and I've set myself to verified. When you first sign up for an account, you may see yourself in a pending status. We go through a verification process to make sure that we're really only we're vetting and making sure that we have the authoritative sources that come in and are able to publish that data. Once you're verified, you're able to publish and unpublish the data as you see fit. But essentially, this is our way of making sure that we get the proper sources in the system. So I'm working on kind of a test account here, but I verified myself for this one. I'm going to add an advisory here, and there's a few things I need to fill out. Essentially, the title is the main thing that's going to show up, probably the information, the thing that is going to be readily available in B4UFLY or on the Aloft applications to give that pilot, at a glance, what are we talking about here? So that's the title of the advisory. I'm going to put in some summary detail. This is going to also appear on the cards in B4UFLY and Aloft around the airspace and kind of give the pilot a little bit more detail if they want to read more about, what is the state code on managed lands, for example, in this case in Florida. I'm going to give this an advisory a type. I'm going to call this a Florida State Park. I'm going to mark it as this one. It happens to be a cautionary advisory. We do have the ability to say this is clear, green, good to go. You can fly here. There's some state parks to say, yeah, we would encourage you to fly in this park. This one is designated for drone flying. Or on the flip side, hey, this is a restricted area. You cannot fly over the stadium or around Disney World or what have you, nuclear facility, things like that. We can mark those restricted and make sure that the pilots are aware. Definitely do not fly in those areas. Next thing I'm going to do is link to the official rule. So this is where the mandate is coming from. These are some Florida rules around this operation, and numbers in there correctly. And then I'm going to, this is the email next, put that in so I can email Florida Department of Environmental Protection there if I wanted to, and then I'm also going to list their website. All of this will be, again, surfaced on the advisory in B4UFLY or the Aloft applications, so that pilots have a place to go to either contact, get back to you, look for further details. Now, when it comes down to the advisory, I can either set a date. In this case, I may say, okay, I'm going to do this for Wednesday of this week. Oh, that's today, Thursday. And we're going to say ending Friday. I can, set a 2-day or 1-day window for that advisory. It would only appear for that limited window. On the other hand, in this case, I'm going to set this to be a permanent advisory. As long as it's published, it'll be out there with no expiration. And then essentially, I've got this little mini map I can draw on, so I can click here and draw a little something. If I had a simple thing, I'd prefer to use this big extended map. Gives me a little bit more information. Again, I have those same drawing tools here. So if I've got, hey, I just want to put an area around something quick, like a farmer's market, I could do that. I could, got a few different shapes I could try. Click, click, click. And I've got different shapes and types that I could use. Do that again. Yeah, many. Get as interesting as you want. In this case, I have a KML. We support KML, zipped up shape files, GeoJSON, some, your standard GIS formats, and we can import those. I'm going to grab this KML that happens to be for that restoration area and open it up, and it's going to show up there on the map. It fits in nicely, and I'm going to click OK. Goes back on my mini map here. So I'm good to go there, and I'm just going to click save. The advisory has now been created. Next thing I can do is publish that advisory. I can also edit and delete it, right? Go back and make a mistake, edit it. If I publish it, next thing you see, this published flag gets set to yes, and now that is going to go live to the Aloft network. I can go down here and view in the Aloft network. In this case, it's going to take me into B4UFLY, centered around those coordinates. And you can see this is what that advisory would look like in B4UFLY. Now I've, full disclosure, pre-baked this cake a little bit, and here it is out there on B4UFLY. But I put in there for the description. I've got the link to those rules. So anybody, again, this is on the web. This also works in on our mobile apps the same way. Click on those rules, etc. But essentially, there you go. Now, just as easy as that, we've created an advisory, published it out there, and it's viewable now to anybody who wants to check airspace with B4UFLY or Aloft applications. So air control being the prime one for our enterprise customers. So lots of eyes on it now, and we're ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you for that demo, Brad. And we will open it up now for our Q&A. We have some questions that were submitted by the audience beforehand. And then if you have any questions live and would like to have us address them, you can put that in the chat feature here on BlueJeans. Well, we are live now for our Q&A. We have received some questions in the chat, but Brad, did we want to kick off with some of the questions that we received from the audience beforehand?
Sure thing. So we received a question about a registration that came in and they still had a pending status. What do I need to do? Essentially, we went through the verification process for a lot of the government agencies just this past week, and actually verified a whole bunch of agencies yesterday. So if you're in that bucket, you should have received an email saying, hey, you're verified now and you're good to go. Feel free to go in there. Please start publishing your data. Looking forward to seeing that out there. On the other hand, if you're still in a pending status or have received an account rejected notice email, it's likely because you were a pilot who just signed up to thinking that you had to use the sign up to in order to be able to view these advisories. As Erica said, this is all being put out there for free before you fly, just like we have before. You don't need an account to do that as a pilot. Really, the accounts are for those agencies that have the authoritative data and want the keys to publish. Which kind of leads to the next question, and I saw it in the chat as well. People are asking, is it paid or kind of a subscription feature layer? No, this is free to publish, free to view. We want better access to local advisory. That's the objective here. Another kind of side question to that is somebody asked, is this publicly available? Who will have access? And yes, the question is completely publicly available. This is considered public information. We're putting it out there. We do have some terms if you're interested. When you sign up for these accounts, you can read those terms and conditions. But yeah, it's essentially public data for everybody to go view and have that common way to look at it. We've got B4UFLY is obviously free. We've got our Aloft mobile app that will also show this data, and air control. All of the data is served up for free in any of those applications. I think I saw another question in the chat, similar to one that we had coming in advance. How quickly is this data updated? I'm going to try to give you the simple answer and go from there. Essentially every 4 hours during daylight in the US. If you wanted to get into a little more details, we're publishing at 8:30 a.m., 12:30, 4:30, and 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, which translates to 5:30, 9:30, 1:30, and 5:30 Pacific. Basically trying to cover all the daylight hours in the US. It does take a little bit of time. There's some processing involved there, but essentially, if you have an afternoon advisory, we'd encourage you to get it in before noon that day. We will be working on and have some upcoming work to reduce those times and have them, be very published more quickly, to handle those emergent use cases. We thought, the vast majority of the use cases, the data that we've been asked to publish out there were those permanent advisories. And so we thought, let's get this out there now. Lots of data out there in the future, and we'll continue to improve those lead times in some upcoming work here. I'm losing track of the chat here. There was one question. Is this global or limited to the US? I think, in general, because we do the B4UFLY app, we manage that for the FAA. The FAA is primarily US based. Most of the information will be US based. That said, we see people checking B4UFLY from international destinations. We certainly see this would work certainly anywhere globally, so not a big deal. Yes, it works globally. I think you'll find most of the information will be US based. Let's see, we have one more about sharing data in terms of an Esri layer. I'm needing a little more clarification from the gentleman that asked that question. We are sharing this data out in what they call a tile server, much like Esri does. It's served up for free via our applications. So the format is very compatible with an Esri layer. We're not sharing it out publicly. We do have, however, public APIs for checking airspace, and I'd encourage you to go to aloft.ai/API. I think I got that right. And check out our APIs. There's ways to check airspace there, and certainly, we'll be adding these local data layers to those APIs as well if you want to ingest local data programmatically that way. Hope I answered that question. Looking through the chat here, free for local agencies. Covered that one. Yep. I think I got the live question in there. Any advice for a startup?
We received a question that I think you might have a good insight on, Brad, from Al Mowbray. Is it possible to provide data from an ArcGIS online layer? We are a local government that has ordinance prohibiting drone use in natural areas. It would be great to feed an AGOL layer into Aloft so your data is up to date.
Right. So you're talking about a web service or a web feature service of that data. Right now, we're sticking to the shape files and KMLs. If you want to export that layer to a shape file, we can ingest that. I'd go that route. Really to make this performant, we really have to have it in our own tile server, and so that it's pretty zippy in front of pilots on their mobile apps and everything like that. And we really don't want to rely on those third-party web services to load as well. So I'd recommend, shapefiles, KMLs, GeoJSON, all of those things are pretty standard when it comes to GIS interchange formats. If you can kick that out to a shapefile, for example, send it our way. We'd love to have it in.
Awesome. There's another question that came in that is, does this program work in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, or just the continental U.S.?
Yeah, so things, again, there's no, map-based limits to this. The data will surface anywhere you put it. So, we should be able to have that available for those areas as well.
You might have addressed this, but there was a question of what GIS files can be uploaded, i.e. a statewide parcel layer.
So I'm wondering the need for a statewide parcel layer. Like, these are advisories, and the parcel layer is going to be more your cadastral information. So I don't know that we have a need for that. I think it's going to get that's probably a little bit of overkill. This isn't meant to be a full-blown GIS. We're really trying to put these advisories that are pertinent to the pilot as to where they can or can't fly into that layer. Hope I've answered your question there.
Yeah, and feel free, that question came from Jason Goldstein, so if there's any clarification, if you want to put that in the chat, to go in more detail. One question that came through during the presentation was, is this webinar being recorded? And just wanted to let everybody know it is. The recording of both the presentation as well as this live Q&A will be sent to you via email after the live event, along with the presentation deck that we used for our demo. But if you guys have any other pressing questions, feel free to put those in the chat. You can also reach out to us at geo@aloft.ai with an email any questions. I'll put in the chat the link to Aloft Geo Portal. So if you are an authoritative agency and would like to start using this, if you have an account that's been verified, you can start adding layers in today. Question, it says, yes, final question is, it auto-populates for me with the current time, but it should be in UTC. Is that something like we're just using the current time where the user's at?
We're talking about when you create the advisory and you click on.
Let's see.
So I'm not seeing that chat question. So
it's from Scott Marcus. I'll see it. Could you clarify?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's coming in as local time, even though the parentheses say UTC. Yes, that is your local time. I'll get that checked out. That is your local time, and then we'll it's stored in UTC. UTC as many things aviation.
All right, and Laura, I just put the contact email address in the chat for Geo Portal, as well as a link to Geo. And these will all these links will also come in an email to everyone in their inbox following event. Jason, who asked the question about the GIS files, the statewide parcel layer, gave a clarification that says, we have a permit required policy. We would like to place our park boundaries across Washington state and link our state code and application.
So yes, the park boundaries, absolutely. We'd like to get those in there. If you have a shapefile of those park boundaries, yes. You should take the shapefile and then zip it up, and then you can drop the zip file on the dashboard, much like I did that KML, and we'll expand those park boundaries and be able to display them that way.
Awesome. Well, I think if that is all of the questions that the audience has, thank you so much, Brad, for being on today and demoing Geo and giving everyone a look into this new platform that we've created here at Aloft. And thank you everyone who joined the webinar this afternoon. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Fly safe.